now to continue this section of corrections and omissions, I need to correct a title that I gave in the last section. I said something about my father being a managing director of the bank or something like that. His correct title was managing vice president of the City National Bank. He was a vice president who was also managing the bank. So he was managing vice president. Okay? I hope I've corrected that all right. And then I wanted to add something about dogs. I was very fond of all the dogs in our neighborhood, except for two of them. There were two of them that scared me to death. They barked loudly at night, and I was afraid they were coming to get me and to carry me off somewhere and hurt me. I was so afraid of those dogs. So my daddy decided he needed to do something about that. And one day he took me down the street to meet a lady, a very nice young lady who was from France. She had married an American soldier and had come over here to Texas to live. But she missed her dog so much that she had left back in France. And so she arranged to have her dogs sent over to her in Cleburne, Texas. And those were the dogs that I heard barking every night. She said that they were just trying to get used to being in a strange land. And they were somewhat afraid at night. And that's why they kept barking, because they didn't understand the place where they were. And they were trying to get used to it. And then she took me out into the backyard and she introduced me to those two dogs. They were two big German Shepherd dogs. I thought they were the most beautiful animals I had ever seen besides horses. And she introduced me to them and held my hand out to touch them and showed me that they were really very sweet and gentle when they got to know you. And they were getting acquainted with me. And they were beginning to feel like I was a friend. And they liked for me to touch them. And I liked being able to pat them. And she said, now see, When you hear them barking at night, know that they are really friends of yours, and they're just barking because they're lonesome and they're trying to get used to this new land. But they really love you and like to have you as their friend. Oh, she was so right. I love those dogs. And I thought when I grow up, I want to have a dog just like this. A big German shepherd dog like this. And you know, every time after that, when I heard those dogs barking at night, I was no longer afraid because I knew they were my friends now. And they were just trying to get used to their new home. So my daddy had solved that problem for me. And I wasn't afraid of the barking dogs any longer. Then I remember another problem Daddy solved for me. I had wanted so much to go camping because I heard the boys in the neighborhood talking about going camping and how much fun they had had going camping. And I thought that would be so much fun. And I asked my daddy if I could go camping. And he said, all right, he would take me camping sometime. But every time that he planned to take me, something would interfere and we never got to go camping. So finally Daddy said he would just solve it in another way. He went downtown and bought a large piece of canvas. Now, you couldn't get nice little tents in Cleburne at that time. So he was going to make a tent, which he did. He bought this canvas and he put some poles up and had the canvas strung up by these poles so that it looked like a small tent. And then inside he put an old army cot he had. And that was what I was going to get to use to go camping. And he put some bedding, some old quilts, and an old pillow on the army cot. And then he said that my tent was ready for me to go camping in it. And so, sure enough, I spent the night out there in that tent on that army cot. And I was a little bit scared at first, but then I realized there was nothing to be afraid of. And I was so happy to be camping. And so I was just had fun sleeping there that night. And the next morning, my daddy came out and asked me if I was hungry. And of course I said I was. And so he said he was going to cook breakfast for me. And he fixed a little campfire in front of the tent. And he brought out an old skillet. And he got down there on the ground and he cooked my breakfast for me. And then he served it to me, and I sat on the ground and ate my breakfast, and oh, it tasted so good. Those eggs and that bacon and that toast, all cooked in that frying pan. Oh, they tasted so good. Right by that little campfire. And I ate my breakfast, and it was so much fun. So that was my first camping trip. And I did camping like that many times after that. I loved sleeping outside, and I loved it when my daddy came and cooked my breakfast for me. And he was so good to always set it up for me and cook it for me. And that was my camping experience, and it was such fun. And I was so happy that I got to go camping, even though it was only in my backyard. And then I remember another time when our neighbor, Mr. Coleman, got a movie camera. And he was taking movies of our neighborhood. And he talked my daddy into getting a movie camera. Now, the one Daddy got was much smaller than Mr. Coleman's, but it still was big enough to take pictures of our family. And Daddy took pictures of Ann and I riding on our horses down at the end of the street where we could ride real fast and run. Had plenty of room to run our horses. And he took pictures of us going to camp and lots of other things, playing in our backyard, and other things. And then we had a snowfall. Now, we had not had a snow like that in Cleburne in years. It was beautiful, and it was so much fun to play in. And we, of course, we made snowballs and threw snowballs at each other, and we made a little snowman, and we had a little snow fort, and we made snow ice cream. My mother told us to find some nice clean snow and bring it in to her, and she put some vanilla extract and some sugar in with it and made ice cream out of it, and it tasted so good. So we had lots of fun playing in the snow, and Daddy had fun taking movies of us doing all of those things out in the snow. So that was a good way for him to use his movie camera. And then he put together the movies that he had made. He spliced the them together and made a nice little program out of it, and even added at the end a little cartoon that he had bought, just like in the movies downtown that had cartoons at the end. And so he added a little cartoon. So he had this nice little program of home movies that he had put together from the movies he had made. He had bought this machine to cut them and glue them together so that he made it into a nice program. And he loved to show that program when people came to see us. And he even embarrassed me when I brought those friends over to put on the program at our church, when I was trying to impress Ernest Dimmelum. My daddy showed those home movies to that crowd of college kids, and I was a little embarrassed, but they all seemed to enjoy it because they weren't used to seeing home movies like that. So my daddy had lots of fun with the home movies, and especially the ones he made of the snow. He especially enjoyed those. So we have Mr. Coleman to thank for getting my daddy started showing home movies. And then my daddy was always making something. And he let me help him as much as he could because I was always interested in what he was trying to build. He always seemed to be remodeling our house or building something in his workshop. And he always gave me things to do, to hold a tool for him or to hammer something in, or he found some little things that I could do, and I loved being able to help him. I remember the first thing he did was, I think, was to remodel in our living room, to remodel the area around the fireplace with the bookshelves on either side. And then he did some remodeling later in the dining room. But most of the work in the house was done in the back part of the house, in the back bedrooms. And he was changed things around there several times, and it was always such fun for me when he did. And eventually he made a really nice new bedroom for Ann and I with a half bath and an extra bedroom at the back of the house, which he liked to use. So those were some of the things that we did to the house. But also, he always had things going in his workshop out in the back. Now, I first remember a small workshop he had next to the garage. And then I remember he moved it to the back of the garage where he had a much larger workshop. And he had several large tools there. And I remember that's where he taught me to use a coping saw. And I've forgotten what I made, but I know that he helped me to cut out some shape with a coping saw. And oh, I thought that was such fun. So I loved doing things with him in his workshop, as well as helping him doing the remodeling that he was always seemed to be working on in the house. And when he built the barn for our horses down at the end of the street, I got to go down there with him nearly every afternoon, and he let me help him do little things to help in the building of that. And oh, that was such fun for me. So I loved all the building that I got to do with my daddy. It was great fun. And I always appreciated him including me and helping me to feel like I was doing something important. And then I can think of one other thing I wanted to add as a way to wind things up. Now, I know that I'm liable to think of something else to add, something that I need to correct, or something that I had left out. But as of now, I cannot think of anything else that I want to record except this one item, which I want to end with now. Now, this item, strangely, is about picking cotton. Now, I had always enjoyed going with my daddy when he went out to visit farms, when he had to go talk to a farmer, usually because the farmer was slow on playing on his note, and Daddy had to go talk to him about it. But he always took me along when he could, and I always loved going, and the farmers were always so nice to me. So, one of the things that I always enjoyed was the time of the year when the cotton came out and was the white balls of cotton came out in the fields, and you could just see fields of white everywhere you looked. And oh, I thought that was so wonderful. And I thought that this must be the most wonderful cotton anywhere. And Daddy explained to me about how it was made into thread and into fabrics and used to make our clothes and the things that we used in our house and all. And And I just loved cotton from then on. And so I loved it so much that when I saw people out picking cotton with their long bags spread out that they were filling with cotton, I thought, that looks like so much fun. I wish I could pick cotton like that. And I kept telling my daddy that I thought it would be so much fun if I could pick cotton. So he kept thinking about that and working out a way that I could do it. And one of the farmers that he visited regularly had two daughters who were a little older than me. And these daughters picked cotton along with the crew that was hired to come in and pick. The daughters picked to earn extra spending money. And of course, the people in the crew that came to pick were picking money for their food, their meals, and they're paying for their homes and all of the things that they needed in their life. It was very important to them to be able to make money picking cotton. So my daddy arranged that I could go out and pick cotton with this farmer's daughters, who were a little older than me. And I could pick cotton for one morning. And so I went out and I was given a bag, a long bag, to put my cotton in. And I saw how the others did it. They got down on their hands and knees and crawled along picking cotton. Or they leaned over and walked along picking cotton. It looked like it could get pretty uncomfortable after a while. But these girls, the farmer's daughters, showed me how they were doing it, and that it would be fun for me to do it for a while. So I followed them along with my bag, and I picked cotton for a whole morning. And I was beginning to get very tired by the time the lunch break came. I thought, how in the world do these people keep going? In the afternoon, I knew I couldn't come back and do it in the afternoon, but I made it through the morning. And so when it was time for the noon break, these girls invited me to come and sit with them in the shade of the wagon. And their mother had brought out sandwiches and lemonade that she had made for us. And she made some for me too, which was so sweet of her. And so we sat there and ate our sandwiches and drank our lemonade. Oh, it was so good. And it helped so much. But even after I had that good food, I was still exhausted. And my daddy came and picked me up and took me home to rest. Because that morning of picking cotton had worn me out. So I went home and rested the rest of the day. But oh, I was so glad I had done it because I saw what it was like. It was such fun for me in the beginning, but it began to be very tiresome. And I didn't know how on earth people did it all day long, day after day. And I thought, good night, those people are so strong. And I admired them so much. So that was my experience picking cotton, picking it for 1/2 day. And I rested to recuperate all of that afternoon until late in the afternoon. My mother came in to tell me somebody had come to see me. And I went out in the front to see who it was. And there was the big wagon full of cotton. And the farmer was sitting on the bench holding the reins to his horses. And he had come to our house on the way to the cotton gin, taking the day's load of cotton to the cotton gin. And he had stopped by our house to pick me up and let me ride with him down to the cotton gin. And my daddy came out and lifted me up onto the bench. It's what you call it. It's not a bench. The seat, the wagon seat's what it was. Up on the wagon seat next to the farmer. And I sat up there next to him with this whole big load of soft, fluffy, beautiful white cotton back of us. And in front of us, this wonderful, steady, trusty team of gray horses pulling the wagon, pulling it from the farm down to the cotton gin. In that wagon was that little bit of cotton I had picked that morning. And all the cotton that all the other people had picked that day. They had filled that wagon with that cotton. And now the farmer was taking it down to the cotton gin, where he would be able to sell the cotton. well, he would be able to have it made into cotton bales, and then it would be sold. So I was thrilled to death that he had come by to pick me up. And I was thrilled when my daddy lifted me up to sit on that wagon seat beside the farmer and ride all the way down to the cotton gin. Watching the horses as they followed the commands of the farmer with his reins, and looking back every once in a while at that wonderful mound of soft white goodness. I just was so thrilled I didn't know what to do. I felt almost like I was a princess, a cotton princess, sitting on a throne. Oh, it was such a thrill. I absolutely loved it. I wanted it to go on and on forever. I didn't want it to ever end. And it was quite a distance down to the cotton gin, so I got to have a good long ride. And the horses were so wonderful. They always obeyed each little command as the farmer moved the reins or made a little clicking sound to them. Said things like whoa or things like that. Giddy up. He had his own little signals that the horses knew and that they followed. Oh gosh, that was such a treat. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget riding up there like a cotton queen with that wonderful load of cotton, the most beautiful cotton mounted back of us, and these wonderful horses following every command as they led us to the cotton gin. And when we got there, the farmer got us in line behind the other wagons. And very soon others were coming in behind us. And then we moved up gradually toward the gin. And when it was the time for our farmer to get his load of cotton sucked up into the cotton gin, we rolled right up, and there was my father standing there waiting to help me down from the wagon so I wouldn't be sucked up with the cotton into the cotton gin. And I got to thank the farmer, and then to go back with my father. And as we walked to the car, he showed me cotton bales that were being made from the cotton that that was soaked up into the cotton gin. And then made into these bales of cotton that came out of the cotton gin. And it was these bales of cotton then that the farmer was able to sell. And that's how he helped to pay for his expenses of his home and his family. So that was a day which I will never forget. On that morning of picking cotton, that noontime picnic with the farm girls, and then riding in that wagon with the cotton to the gin. Oh, it was a wonderful day, a special day, which I'll never forget, and for which I'm so thankful. So this is a way I want to end this now. Now, with my crazy mind, I may think of something else that I've left out a little later. But as of now, this is all I can think of, and I know of no better way to end my memories than in this account of me picking cotton and getting to ride in the wagon to the cotton gin.